Perfect. All right. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining in. I know as people are starting to join, we're off to a couple minutes late, a few technical issues, but no big deal. I am Dr. Carrie Jones, and I'm here with my super very good friend, Angela Heap. And we're here with Regenerous Laboratories or Laboratories, depending on where you live in the world. And we're going to be talking about the Gestational Journey Summit, our lectures. We're going to be talking about fertility and men's health and nutrition and all things. And so as people are starting to join in, like I said, because we're running a couple minutes late, so I want to give people a couple minutes to, refresh, get back into things, then we will go ahead and get started. But just for those of you who have joined in, if you haven't bought your ticket, please, please, please come see us and a host of amazing speakers on October 13th and 14th at the Gestational Journey Summit hosted by Regenerous. And you can buy tickets. You can actually contact Regenerous to buy tickets, or you can buy them at the website, theintegrativehealthsummit.com. So theintegrativehealthsummit.com. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So let's introduce ourselves. So why don't you go first?
Okay, absolutely. Thank you for that amazing introduction, Carrie. Sorry, apologies. The technical issues were my fault. So a couple of minutes late, but we all get here and that's fantastic. And I'm so excited to be talking to all of you guys, getting some questions, and also talking to Carrie as well today. It's the first time we've actually done something together, which is really, really exciting. And we're both going to be at the Gestational Journey, so it's going to be an amazing summit, and I'm so excited that so many people can actually join us today. And I'm going to do a bit of an introduction to myself, and then I'll pass over to Carrie. My name's Angela Heap. Hopefully many of you know who I am from Instagram. I'm very, very active on that. Probably the most active out of all of the social media that I use. And we've been basically blogging the hell out of the gestational journey, haven't we? Talking to as many people as possible, trying to get as many practitioners on board with this. Just to give you a bit of background about myself, I'm a nutritional therapist. So over in the UK, many people who are actually, working in this field will be joining the calls and maybe have given us some amazing questions. I actually graduated from the College of Naturopathic Medicine, 2008, so a long time ago now. So I've been doing this for about 10 years. Not as long as Carrie, but obviously I'm kind of involved in this whole area. Way back then, and I think Carrie probably and a couple of other people were the only people involved in this area. So I think it's a growing area. It's a really exciting area to be involved in. And I think, from the amount of people who've actually been getting in touch with me and Carrie lately and sending direct messages and all sorts on social media, it shows that this is actually something that's really growing in interest. And I've specialised in this area for 10 years. I've been focusing particularly on fertility. So all of my research, everything I do is about fertility and the areas that surround that. So things that can actually cause infertility. So some of those conditions like particularly endometriosis, fibroids, which can actually cause some issues, and also polycystic ovarian syndrome and polycystic ovaries. So those are the main areas that I focus on, and I spend so much time in my week looking, geeking out, and I'm sure Carrie does as well. And I do a lot of posts on those things as well. So hopefully I can bring my passion to this area. I know Carrie has got a huge amount of passion in this area, and it comes across in both of our daily posts if we get things out there. So that's a little bit of an introduction to me. Bit of a long one, sorry, a bit long.
No, I love it.
But so I'm handing back over to Carrie. Basically tell us a little bit about you. I listened into the session that you have with Ralph Esposito the other day, and I found out a bit more about you. So you actually got into the whole area. So I guess that's probably a good way to start. How did you get into this area? What interests you? What kind of drives you in that whole, focus around female health. You know, tell us all about you.
That's all about me. So, yeah, thanks. In the United States, I'm a naturopathic doctor. And so I practice in the state of Oregon. And for those of you who are geographically challenged, we're the state directly above California. And in the state of Oregon, I'm a primary care practitioner. I'm considered what you would call a GP. And so I knew from a very young age, I wanted to be a women's health doctor. I thought I wanted to go the conventional route and become an MD, and I got very disillusioned with it. And one thing led to another, and I actually found the naturopathic college in Portland, Oregon, the Naturopathic University, and graduated from there in 2005. And I basically spent my entire naturopathic career focusing on women's health and hormones. So I did my 2-year residency in women's health and hormones, gynecology, and then I wanted to do more international work. And so I went back to school while practicing, and I got my master's in public health so I could combine that sort of public health, women's health aspect with what I already knew. And so subsequently, since then, I do see a small handful of men when I see patients. I find, like women go to the doctor and they just drag their husband or their partner or their, family member along, and they're like, you should really go see this. You've got issues too. You should go see somebody, go see a practitioner. Yeah. But primarily, women's health and hormones is what I've done. So I've done a lot of fertility. I used to teach for advanced endocrinology and infertility at the naturopathic medical school years ago. But I focus on perimenopause, menopause, women going through puberty, just like Angela said, PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, and branch out from there, thyroid, fibromyalgia, GI, gut stuff, brain stuff. So, but it's all very hormonally based is what I go back to. So I don't have nearly the amazing responses that Angela gets. I feel like every other message you have is another one's pregnant, another pregnancy test, another baby. And I just think you're like the magic touch for fertility, which is so wonderful when people say, who should I follow for fertility? I'm like, Angela, if you just follow her, you'll get pregnant. I mean, if you just follow on her Instagram, you'll probably get pregnant. So.
Yeah. Well, no, not all the time. I mean, these are just all the amazing things that happen when you kind of work in an integrative way. And I think that's basically, what we're all doing these days is getting more and more training, getting, much deeper into this whole area. And I think you put it beautifully, really, when you're talking about the whole area. And I think this is the problem, I think, with the kind of the conventional medicine route. It kind of does, endocrinology, gynecology. It's like we're all different parts of the body, aren't we? And there's no connection there, and I think this is what the beauty of having a naturopathic doctor work on you, a nutritional therapist. You actually get the whole picture. People who come to see both me and yourself will look into everything, because something so tiny that people might not think is relevant, I'll go off on a tangent and I'll actually see, that actually this is a huge issue. And this is what's driving the whole inflammation path in the body. So, exactly as you were saying there, Carrie, it's a fascinating subject for me. I'm sold. As soon as I got my period, I was sold, I was like, wow, I'm making eggs every month. I'm getting rid of it. The cleaners are coming in every month. They're pulling it away. We've got a whole new set happening every single month. So that's basically where I started getting interested in hormones. And I often think to myself, I used to hang around health food shops and, give people all sorts of healthy foods. And I was interested in it from such a young age. And I guess like you as well, why did it take us so long to get to where we are? It's amazing sometimes, isn't it, really? You go through different phases in life. And I think, the universe pulls you in. It calls you when you're ready. And I think that's the beautiful thing about what we do. It's always the right timing. And I think that's what I often say to ladies who are having fertility issues. I can be the car mechanic, I can help you with that. But the timing is always, universal. It's about the right baby for you, and you kind of choose each other. So I think that's, how I like to kind of put things. It's always the right time, and the right people always come to you at the right time to help support you with a little tweak here and there.
Right, exactly. Which is the point of this summit, right? This gestational journey summit, because it's to pull together a whole lot of amazing practitioners and really then educate practitioners whose focus is in fertility. So speaking of which, what will you be lecturing about at this summit? Give people a little snapshot, give them a little teaser.
Yeah, absolutely. So I say absolutely so much, honestly, I'm terrible. Whenever anyone asks me, it's a real Englishism, isn't it, to say absolutely. You guys say right, and we say absolutely. It's terrible. So basically what I'm talking about at the summit is nutrition, a clinical approach. So it's going to be very much about the research behind that, where in terms of fertility is everything coming from. There's, obviously a whole new area that's starting to develop now from 2000 onwards that looks into what's happening from a clinical perspective, how we can actually change things, how we can improve fertility. I mean, it's all about the hormones really, and getting those in the right place before everything starts to kind of move on a fertility front. So as soon as that starts to happen, we're cooking with gas effectively. So my job generally is to balance hormones a bit more. And I think at the gestational journey, which I'm so delighted to be part of, it's the first thing that I've seen for a long while across, the world really, the continents. I've not seen anything in Australia, New Zealand, America, or even the UK for a couple of years, looking specifically at this area. And I think the beauty of the people involved in it is that we're covering everything. My area is how we can help preconceptionally get into balancing the hormones and reducing that inflammation that may be causing some of those things. And then we've obviously got people like yourself who are going to be talking about the hormonal side of things. So I think we complement each other quite well because we're really next to each other on the panel, aren't we? So
on the speaker docket.
Yeah, we're kind of like changing and passing the baton from one to the next. So I think that's the beauty of the gestational journey. It's going to be taking the right people at the right time. So it's going to be preconception, one day, and hormones, and then it actually goes to things that you can take in terms of herbs and supplements. And then the second day is all about, pediatric care, and we've got somebody that's going to, is a pediatric doctor, which is going to be amazing there. And also, people who actually help postnatally as well, because that's a huge thing. So I think it's going to be such an amazing summer. I'm really, really excited about it. And from my perspective, it's going to be, all about how we can actually support people preconceptually, really, and how you can get yourself in the right way. And my major thing that I'm sure everyone's sick to death of me saying is you would never do a marathon without any training. So it's exactly the same as preparing your body for pregnancy, because even though it's the most natural thing in the world, it's such an important thing to get that right, and get your body baby friendly beforehand, because it is a very, very demanding thing on the body, and the baby will always get what they need, but your body will actually become very depleted. And I did a session with a guy over here that came over from Australia, a doctor, an MD actually from Australia, and he's written a book about the postnatal depletion cure. So he's basically talking about how he's seen so many people who've gone through 1, 2 and 3 pregnancies, and they're absolutely depleted. So that just kind of proves my point in a way that it's such a massive thing on your body. It's so depleting that it's really important to give yourself the right nutrients and make sure you've got everything in the right place. Your thyroid is balanced as much as it can be. There is a low inflammatory kind of response in the body, and your hormones are as balanced as they can be, because you're starting a journey. It's going to be a long haul ahead. So for me, preconception is such an important thing, because it can take you through the rest of your life. You don't get a do-over once that baby's in there. The nutrients have got to come from all areas, really. So an important thing to get right, really.
No, absolutely. And not a lot of people do. It's funny. There's one of the people, for those who don't know, I'm the medical director for the Dutch test, which is a dried urine hormone test. And one of the women who works here is pregnant, and it's her first baby. And she said, God, I'm so tired all the time. And I'm like, girl, you're growing a human. Like, you're literally growing a human, like that takes work, and it takes, you have to rest. It's okay. And you have to take care of yourself, and you have to have proper nutrients. Yeah.
So tell us about what you're doing, Carrie. So as part of the journey, give us a bit of a snapshot about, what you're going to be taking, the practitioners who are going to be coming along to that day.
All the practitioners, you're going to learn a lot about hormone testing. And again, I get it. I'm biased. I'm biased because I'm the medical director for Dutch, but I am talking about blood testing, saliva testing, urine testing, because it drives me absolutely positively nuts when women come in to see me and they're like, here are my hormones. I got my hormones tested. And I'm like, great. Where were you in your cycle? And they're like, I don't know. My appointment was on Thursday at 4 p.m. I'm like, well, that tells me nothing. So we're going to talk a lot about the importance of cycle tracking, what test you test when do you test FSH, when do you test estradiol, when do you test progesterone, and why, when do you test AMH, why would you check prolactin? So we're just going to tick off these common boxes, because I find a lot of practitioners get really excited about fertility, and they can cover the basics, and you may see this too, but when it's not working or they need to dive deeper, they're like, I don't know what to test next. Or my patient's estrogens are high. What else can that cause? I'm like, well, we have to look at detox. We have to look at prolactin. We have to look at progesterone. It can affect the FSH, and like it's the spider web effect. And so I want practitioners to feel really comfortable basically saying, okay, these are the things I can start with testing. And then if that's not working, then these are the next sort of group of things that I can look at when it comes to hormones. And then what to do. What do you do when you have somebody whose brain is not communicating to the ovary? What do you do when somebody's corpus luteum is not strong and it's not producing enough progesterone? Because I can give you the testing and the why, but we're going to talk about the then what. So it's going to be a lot of really good review for a lot of people, and maybe some new stuff, for new people or people who would just sort of dabble in fertility. And I'm really excited because I'm right before you. So I'm the second lecturer of the day. So I cover a lot of just basics. I just sort of set the stage. We talk about testing, and then it's great. Then I hand it off to you and all the amazing other speakers who just build and build and build and build on like what you said, nutrition and postnatal work, and Felicia Gersh is talking about PCOS. And I mean, it's just this really, really great blend. But hormone testing is what I'm talking about, the importance and appropriateness of hormone testing. So once you know the test, then you listen to Angela and she'll tell you what to do about it nutritionally.
Absolutely. And that is such an important thing that, a lot of people that contact me and get in touch with me who start looking into this whole area with, because, we're starting to do it now in colleges over here, but the testing side of things is, it's half a day, and it's not enough really when it comes to that. And also, not just looking at the hormones, but, I had a test in from someone that I was looking at just before we got on the call. It's about looking at the full blood count. It's looking at your electrolytes. It's looking at your protein, the whole works. And if you can get some of those nutrients in there, that's amazing, because then we can actually look at those key things like zinc, that's important for your reproductive cycle and immunity. And see
in men.
In men, my goodness, we are going to talk about the men. So we've been keeping them out really for a while, and to be honest, we can't make 100% up, can we? We do need 50% of them, to help. They that's one thing they are useful with.
The other half, we need that sperm to make the other half of that baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need it to be healthy, and we need, we need both sides to be healthy. We need both sides to be worked up.
Yeah, and
I think
this is such an important thing that you're going to talk about in terms of the testing. So I guess you're going to be talking about how to analyze sperm tests as well, which is going to be a fantastic.
I go into it a little bit. Yeah, I go into it a little bit.
Because that's another thing that a lot of practitioners get in touch with me. They say, oh, I'm not sure about this. I've just had a sperm analysis through. What do I do? Is this normal? Is this abnormal? And you do have a lot of parameters, really. There's so many different labs that do different ones. It's great, because I just saw one today even that actually did so much detail. It actually went in the morphology and looked at head, mid and tail defects. So it actually did the percentage of things that were going wrong, because most of the things that I'm seeing with people, with the guys, is not necessarily the count or the motility. It's actually the morphology. So I'm seeing this as a huge thing. So I guess these are really interesting things that people who are looking at fertility do need to actually look at. So it's very delicate to do that with people, to say, if you're with somebody and you're a guy and you can actually, do this, please do this alongside the woman, because I've been with so many couples that we've worked on the women for, you know, IVF, and the egg quality has been absolutely amazing, top notch. And then when the actual egg fertilizes, the egg doesn't necessarily, the embryo doesn't get to that sort of, you know, 5-day blastocyst stage. And you just think, well, that's a bit strange, because it was a really top quality egg, and, you know, the embryologist was really excited about it. And then we kind of, you know, look at the morphology and everything, and, you know, the count and motility. And actually what we're finding is there's some issues there. So, you know, and a lot of IVF clinics are now trying to overstep that by looking at ICSI, which they, you know, inject into the egg, which again, I'm not so sure about. So again, I'll be talking about those kind of things, and what to suggest and support your clients with, and what nutrients to actually help improve some of these issues with. So the guys are definitely not off the hook.
They're not. And I know they get scared, you know, they get nervous or they get concerned because, you know, they think they don't, it's sort of a manly thing sometimes. They don't want to be known, or they don't want to be the one with the problems. But I tell all the guys when I do fertility, I'm like, there's so much you can do. There's so much you can do to be proactive when it comes to your morphology, especially, but just even how to raise count. And so I'm so glad you said that about ICSI. I completely understand. So for those who don't know it, so IUI is when they surround an egg with sperm, and then they let sort of natural selection take place, and when one sperm will figure it out. ICSI is when they literally just pick the healthiest looking sperm, and then they just inject it into the egg. And so the IVF clinic is doing it for you. They're picking this one sperm to go in your egg and putting it in there. And I fully understand, and I have patients who've done ICSI and have, you know, great healthy kids. But on the other hand, I'm like, it's literally just visual. They're just looking to find a healthy sperm on the outside. And if he's done no work, we have no idea how healthy that sperm is on the inside, and his genetic material that he's carrying, and everything. And men, you know, that in sperm carry a lot of risk. They're responsible for a lot of risk in people. And so I think we can't let the men off the hook. They can make a lot of changes too, just as much as the women can. And women often get blamed because women go to the doctor, and, you know, we bleed, and it's cycle related. And so the finger gets pointed at us a lot. But men, just like you said way in the beginning, you're 50% of this equation. So let's not make stupid babies, which is what I say all the time. We want smart babies. We don't want stupid babies. We want healthy babies.
And also, we don't want to get to the stage where women are having, you know, miscarriages 2 and 3 times, and they're saying, but I've been doing everything you've said, Angela. You know, I've changed my lifestyle massively. You know, I've cut out chemicals, and I'm having organic food and everything. And you can have that, you know, when you're supporting couples, well, women in particular, women generally, and I've found this might be a major generalization, but they will literally do anything to improve how things are. But I'm finding that the guys
for
are
fertility.
more difficult. Yeah. So what they basically are doing is everything they possibly can, and it's making a massive difference. I've seen people who go for IVF where they've had 2 cycles beforehand, and the embryologist who knows them has gone through it and said, wow, what have you done? You know, something's different here. You know, we're getting, you know, 10 plus eggs, whereas we were getting 4 or 5 before, and they are all fertilizing and they're looking much better. But what we're finding in recent months or years that I've been working is that if people don't look at the sperm health, people are actually, you know, only having chemical pregnancies, or they're having miscarriages. And that whole work that all the women's done and going through IVF, and that's just such a huge burden on the body, is something that we need to really work on. And it's just as easy to work on the men as it is on the women. And it's almost like a contract where you say, it's going to be 3 months of your life, guys. Let's just kind of, you know, hit the ground running with this, and really put in as much work as the women are. Because, you know, even though we are completely different, there's a lot of similarities in terms of the things we can do, like antioxidants to support the men. You know, a lot of the things that we're giving to the women that are going to help support them to, you know, improve egg quality and egg health, and, you know, improve basically the uterus that the baby's going to be growing in. can actually be supportive to sperm health as well. So,
Absolutely.
it's a very, very similar program. And even though, I often give supplements that are exactly the same to men and women, the men will go, I'm not taking that. It's got a pregnant woman on the front. And I just say, it's not got iron in it. So therefore both of you can take it. And it does take a bit of convincing, because I think fertility and problems, like you said, Carrie, are often, the female domain. And I think, the medical world has actually pointed the finger at women much more, and they've been used to that. They've been like, hey, hands up. Yeah, I might have some issues here. What can we do to fix it? But I think because of that, we've had 40 years of men kind of going, hey, it's fine, it's you. I know it's you, so we'll work on you, and I'm actually fine. I can, go off to the pub and enjoy my kebab at the end of the night, and everything's going to be fine. And actually, we've really got to hammer that home for, couples that we're working with to actually have a, almost a contract to say, look, it's 3 months. It's going to be, just the healthiest time you're going to be in your life. So let's really put, the work into this whole process.
And for those who are listening and maybe don't understand why does everyone say 3 months, right? Everyone's like, oh, it's a 3 month thing, it's 3 month thing. Because it takes 3 months from your primordial follicle to become the chosen one, right? To win the beauty pageant and get the award and move forward and become the fertilized egg. So it takes about 3 months to make that happen. And so if you get pregnant today, then you have a chosen one that was developing for over the last 3 months and moving through the ranks. Whereas if you wait 3 months and get healthier, then or if even some women even do longer, right? They'll say, I want to get healthy for a year or 6 months. It gives you even more time to just get those follicles in the cell structure and the communication from the brain to the follicles just that much better. And then for men, it takes about, depending on the research you read, it takes about 70 to 80 days to make a sperm. So men make sperm constantly, right? Women are born with their follicles, but men make it constantly. But if you get pregnant with a sperm today, and that's a sperm that really, had a lot of toxic exposure and, had a lot of heat exposure, and the gentleman was very depleted in his nutrients and he was eating gluten when he shouldn't, then you may not have the strongest sperm. But if you give him 70, 80 days to clean up, then 81 days from now, he'll have much stronger, much healthier, much more robust sperm. And that's what you're going for. So that's why Angela's saying we suggest at least a minimum of 3 months when it comes to fertility. But speaking of fertility, because we're really talking about men, what about trends? What trends are you seeing? What are you noticing in the fertility world, conventional or in sort of the integrative holistic? What are you seeing?
From the male perspective, it's generally, like I mentioned before, it's when we go for sperm analysis, it's low morphology. So that is a major trend that I've seen, particularly in the last 2 years. Before that, it was low motility. But I think with kind of doing a few tweaks here and there, with taking certain supplements, that can actually improve that massively. So I think you can improve motility and count, but I think the morphology one is a really tricky one to get right, because, we don't know exactly why the morphology has gone, so badly wrong. I think a lot
and for those who don't know, just to clarify, morphology is what it looks like.
So
right, what the sperm looks like.
And I think when you do the drilling down, it's not necessarily the tail or the midsection, it's actually the head of the sperm. So that's mutated. And I did a post back on Instagram a while ago that showed that you can have double-headed sperm, and that's the good old joke, isn't it? 2 heads are definitely not better than 1 in this case. So we need one sperm, we need it to be shaped in the right way, because it needs to obviously bite through to that outer layer of the egg and the zona to get into there to, drop its DNA load, and that's when it all starts embryogenesis. But we need, a perfectly shaped, streamlined sperm, with everything working well. So we've got the way the shape of the sperm is, the head needs to be very streamlined, the midsection needs to be, the right shape, and the tail needs to be well working in terms of, propelling that sperm forward. So, that's majorly one of the trends I'm seeing in looking at sperm health. And I will touch on this when I do my talk at the gestational journey as well. So it'll be looking very much into the detail about about the dudes and making sure that they're actually doing what they need. And I think from morphology point of view, if we're looking at mutations of the heads and, you know, things not being the right way, we can look at things like, for instance, a lot of guys are actually, you know, holding their cell phones or their mobile phones in their pocket, which again can cause heat, and you know, anything around that area needs to be as you know, as free as possible, because you know, testes were basically formed to make sure that they were the right temperature outside of the body. So to then go, oh great, let's just put a mobile phone there and increase the heat again, that may be one of the reasons why there's some morphology issues. And again, it's also, you know, wearing particular, you know, underwear that actually keeps that temperature quite hot inside there. So making sure you're wearing boxer shorts as opposed to, you know, really tight, you know, particular underwear for men. And also making sure you're not kind of constantly going in the sauna and having hot baths, and, you know, this trend of triathlons where you're wearing, you know, those super tight kind of lycra leggings, and then doing lots of cycling and things like that. So, and alcohol. So you're thinking about all these things that can actually mutate the shape of a sperm. We're talking about toxins and heat and, you know, all sorts of things really. So antioxidants are a huge thing there to help improve that. You know, and one of the biggest things I see to help improve morphology is an antioxidant pycnogenol, which is so I usually support people with low morphology to actually improve that, and I hit them with as much antioxidants or support systems around those things as I possibly can. And then I'm doing environmental support, so making sure the guys aren't drinking as much. You know, it's a lot of the guys, you know, will be British that come to see me, so it's like kind of prizing their pint out of their hands really at the end of the day. It's really hard work, but if you're going, you know, to do this right, you've got to do it right for 3 months. So taking them off the alcohol, also making sure that, you know, they're doing those things that improve you know, the temperature of the testes really, where the sperm is made. So you know, doing those things for 72 days to 3 months really. And also looking at the research around when the best time to you know, the best sperm results that have come out, it's usually autumn and winter, and that probably correlates to the fact that, you know, the summer has been pretty good in terms of vitamin D and relaxation and all those kind of things. So babies born from, you know, conception in the winter will be kind of springtime. So it does make a lot of sense there really in terms of, you know, how things are going really.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I would say I would totally agree. I'm noticing, are you noticing too in which I think is a positive thing, I'm noticing an uptick in just women wanting to be really, really educated around fertility. And I think it's because of social media. I don't have any, you know, hard facts on this, but I find with social media, especially Instagram and chats on Facebook groups and things like that, whereas women before would have maybe gone to their GP or their gynecologist and said, I can't get pregnant. And they would have said, oh, here, go to this fertility clinic, spend thousands of dollars. Good luck. And now they're like, whoa, for either I don't have that kind of money, or two, I don't want to do that. And surely there's an interim step. And so I'm noticing this huge upswing in women who are just getting self-educated, and subsequently, you know, if they're partnered up, they're educating their partner as well in getting themselves healthy, getting their egg healthy, seeking out practitioners like yourself who can help them, you know, get healthy and maybe avoid going the IVF, you know, IUI, you know, ICSI, like we were saying. And so, yeah. And so I'm just noticing this really great trend of women saying, I feel like IVF is a lot. Like maybe I can do something. Maybe I can be proactive. And of course, you and I are like, absolutely, you can be proactive. Yeah. Yes, you can. Now, the downside is that there's sometimes a lot of misinformation out there about fertility and women's health and men's health. Well, there's, you know, sometimes quite a bit of misinformation, but I am really excited to see women who are standing up for themselves and asking a lot of questions and saying, I don't want to do IVF. Surely there's something in between there.
Yeah, absolutely.
To start.
I think from the US, it's a totally different health model. So I think from the UK, because we pay, you know, from our taxes to the National Health Service, people generally can go along to the hospitals and the doctors and they can just, you know, ask their advice. And I think that model has a different kind of mindset with sometimes the people in the UK, because they naturally will go, well, the doctor can help me for free, so I can go and ask them, and maybe I can get referred to help sort my periods out that may be a little bit, you know, going wrong here, and I'm not having any success, and I've been trying for 2 years. And I think because the doctors in the UK, and I think this is a nationwide thing and an international thing, don't have much training in nutrition and knowing the impact of that on fertility and balancing hormones, and some of the great research out there to help, you know, around PCOS and alternatives to drugs like metformin and things like that. They're actually going, right, I'm going to refer you on to a gynecologist, and the gynecologist may not, because they've not got enough time to do all this research, just put them on, you know, the route of getting straight to IVF. If, you know, they see one maybe blood test that isn't necessarily sitting into the right parameters. And then that kind of frightens the women into a certain, you know, state of frenzy, thinking, oh, I better go for IVF because I'm 36 and, you know, time's now.
Yep.
So, you know, it's about, like you said, finding people that are actually starting to look into maybe other things behind the medical establishment, helping them and supporting them. They can do that alongside it. But, you know, even the last year, I'm totally with you on that, Carrie. I'm getting people coming to me saying, I'm 32, I've had a child already, I know I can do this, I don't know, something's gone wrong, and I want to get my body prepped for pregnancy. And I guess it's happening naturally because you're seeing a lot of programs on the TV around healthy eating and all that. So, you know, it's a really exciting thing for us to be involved in, because, you know, we've been jumping up and down and shouting about this for, you know, years and years, 20 odd years. The naturopathic community and the nutritional therapy community in the UK have been saying, hey, you know, this is what it's all about. This is the raw ingredients behind how your hormones get right. You know, if you're not fed the right things, they're not going to work for you. They're not going to play ball. So, you know, that's exactly why it's such an exciting time to be around and be a nutritional therapist and a naturopathic doctor, or a naturopath if you're in Australia and New Zealand or Canada. It's a really exciting time, and I'm so happy, like you, that people are actually taking the health into their own hands, and saying, I want to partner alongside this because I'm going to work with you, and also I'm going to do all the things that are suggested, but I also want to maybe work with my doctor as well. So that whole integrated team, you know, is great if you can get somebody to work for you that understands that from a medical perspective, that is willing to take your nutritional therapist or your naturopathic doctor seriously. If they're not, and, you know, you get that kind of response, then go and see somebody else is always my.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's so true. What about genetics, genomics? What are you seeing with that in fertility? Are you doing a lot of that in your practice? Are you seeing a lot of patients come in asking for it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, that's because there's a lot more hype around that now. There's adverts on TV around looking at your DNA, where you come from, and, you know, that kind of thing. So I've been fascinated with this probably about the last 4 or 5 years. Really interesting sort of area to move into. But again, there's a lot of companies now. There's more than you can shake a stick at now in Australia, America, and the UK that are coming up in this area. And I think it is really fascinating because it's your blueprint. But what we're trying to do with a lot of people who aren't trained in this area is kind of throw all sorts of things at you, because you may have these mutations or polymorphisms, and actually that can speed things up too quickly. It can make things go, you know, a bit too crazy. So it's about balancing that with functional testing as well, and not forgetting that, you know, this is a new area, but you're also a naturopathic doctor, you're also a nutritional therapist, you were trained in these areas. So, you know, symptoms are king always. So speak to them about what's happening in their life, what's happening on, you know, the testing, what's coming back from that, and then putting it alongside the Dutch. And I think that's the beauty of the Dutch test. It's bringing, you know, so many of those things together that look at genetics. It's got, you know, some of the detox pathway genes in there and enzymes, and it basically really helps people to understand that, because it's the only test out there that combines both those things, really, functional and genomics, really, which is absolutely worth its weight in gold, I think.
And do you find I have a lot of women that will message me, or will mostly message me, and they'll say, I got my MTHFR and, you know, I have a mutation in my MTHFR. Can I get pregnant? Will I be able to get pregnant? You know, they fixate on MTHFR because there's so much hype and there's so much information and there's some misinformation and there's all these groups and, you know, communities and whatnot. And so definitely education just needs to keep happening, so these poor women don't get scared, like, oh my gosh, I have MTHFR. I'm like, well, hold on, like, let's take several steps back.
I agree, and that's the difference between the MD side, the naturopathic doctor, and the nutritionist, because the nutritional therapist and naturopathic doctor is often kind of, you know, more ahead of the game on these new things. They can actually do the research, they've got time to do that and everything, and you'll have people that suddenly have gone and done this test on their own without a practitioner to help them to understand it. And then the next step, they've gone to the doctor. They may have, you know, gone to see a hematologist, and the hematologist has gone, oh no, it doesn't matter, none of this is important. And then they're kind of left scratching their head going, well, I've just paid for this test, I haven't had anyone to analyze it, and I've gone to the doctor and the doctor's told me that it was a complete waste of time, and, you know, I shouldn't have wasted my money. And I think, you know, there's definitely, it's moving closer to that point where people, you know, medical doctors are actually understanding that a bit more, and there's a lot more of integrated doctors that are actually now bringing that into the practice. But I think there's definitely a step that needs to be moving a bit closer on that, because there's a patient disconnect between that. And I think, you know, like you, Carrie, there are people coming to me saying, I've been diagnosed with MTHFR. I haven't been diagnosed. The test you've done, you know.
I have the MTHFR.
I have that disease. I've got the MTHFR, you know, and it's a very important gene, you know. It is a gateway to, you know, and it's important for so many pathways in the body, but it's been there for generations. Whatever happened, famine, you know, flood, feud, whatever, it's been there as a, you know, as a mutation because something's happened in a family line somewhere along the line. Interesting questions are where it came about in the first place. Nobody's asking this, and I think that's a fascinating area, because we look at things like PCOS, and that can be down to famine, changing the way that insulin works in the body when you know, the mum's actually carrying the baby. But MTHFR, it's an interesting thing because it's in the folate pathway, and that's all part of DNA replication. So, you know, it happened at some point. We want to know the story behind it. But in the meantime, it's not something that can stop you regenerating and repairing your body. But if you have one copy, there may be, you know, 60% of the population that have this. So that's why the hematologists are saying, oh, it doesn't matter, it's not important. But if we're having, you know, homozygous, which is 2 copies there's potentially a problem there that will, you know, make things a bit slower. So, you know, there's a lot of analysis there.
Especially if you're doing things to continue to slow it down. You know, if you have habits and exposures and things in your life. I mean, even a heterozygous, like you were saying, if it's just 1 copy, so 60% of the population. You know, I have people that will say to me, not on MTHFR so much, but for COMT or COMT, say, well, I only have 1 copy. Like, well, you can still screw it up. You can still make lifestyle choices to screw it up. You know, it's not a perfect system.
That's a perfect analogy, exactly. So I always say your genetics are the poker hand you're given, and you've got to play that accordingly. You can be a great poker player with a really crappy hand, or you have a great hand and squander it and make a real hash of things. So it's about the environment around you, and that's what basically you have the power to control. So, you know, there's people all over the world that have been given crappy genes, but they're not actually triggering them into action because they're living a pretty, you know, happy, healthy lifestyle, really.
They may not even know their genes. They're just naturally living a happy lifestyle. And if they happen to test their genes and they're like, oh my gosh, I was dealt a crappy hand. It's like, well, the person sitting in front of you is doing all right. And so keep doing the good things, keep making the good choices, keep having the good lifestyle, keep reducing, you know, exposure and risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of, are you seeing more of a, an upsurge of people being interested, nutritional therapists kind of, getting on board and speaking to you guys more about that? And I could definitely see there's a huge appetite for that now from the community. It's just exploded, I think, in the last couple of years. Definitely over in the UK. I think, you've just come back from Australia and New Zealand doing, all sorts of training sessions with people over there. So I guess it is becoming, something
it's huge. Yeah, it's definitely the demand. The public is demanding it. Absolutely. And a lot of people want it for themselves. And hearing people's stories of how they became a nutritional therapist or a naturopath or a naturopathic doctor. A lot of people will say, well, I had my own health problems, or my partner did, or my family did. And so I got into it to fix myself or my family or my partner. And then subsequently realized that, there's a huge demand that people around them, their other friends, other family, their coworkers, were really interested in it. And I think just, again, like I said, I don't know if it's social media, but I think just the accessibility to information is just so incredibly huge. And there are great experts out there like yourself, putting great information out there that people feel empowered, and they're like, that's who I want to see. Like, I am not getting this from my GP. I'm not getting this information from my gynecologist. And when I ask them about it, they're like, no, it's not important, or I don't know, or, I only have 8 minutes with you in this visit. You can't really discuss an entire nutritional picture or hormonal picture in 8 minutes in an 8-minute visit. So I think people are absolutely seeking out integrative, holistic nutrition, naturopathic, all over the world.
It's such a great test though. It really is amazing. And I think, working from, a nutritional therapy perspective in the UK, working with Regenerous and ordering those, it's so easy to do that really. You just literally, send off an email, get them to actually send it directly to your client. The client pays on return. So it's actually, fantastic from that perspective. And you can also order it directly from you guys as well, really. So I've had clients that are in America that have just ordered it directly from you guys, and then they send it to you. They get all excited. They're like, oh, my Dutch test is in. It's really exciting, but I don't know what the hell it's talking about. So
right. Well, that's what they need to find somebody, right? You need somebody to hold your hand. And that's with all testing, not just the Dutch test, but, when you're doing stool testing, when you're doing organic acid testing, when in the United States, we have direct to consumer blood testing. You can just walk into a lab and order your own blood test, which on the one hand is great and very empowering. And on the other hand, you're left potentially with a lot of information you have no idea how to manage. And so that's why, finding a really good integrative partner, we definitely encourage it and want it.
They're starting to do that more in the UK now, because in the UK, particularly things like thyroid testing is absolutely pretty diabolical, really. They won't give you the whole test at all. And I guess that happens in the States as well, even when you pay for it. But they will just give you TSH and T4, and that's the full picture apparently. So they'll come back to me and say, oh no, I had my thyroid tested, it's fine, there's no problem there. And that's the important thing about being able to take your health into your own hands. But like you said, once you've done this, you then need to have somebody pretty quickly to start looking at that, because then Dr. Google comes in and you start to get really anxious and worried that something awful's going wrong in your body. And I think, that's what I would always encourage people to do. If they do a lot of these direct to consumer tests, blood tests, they go into labs, or they get, the finger prick test and sent to home and everything. It's important to always get a practitioner on board to help them with that, because you can't mend yourself. I mean, God, I even you, don't I, when I've got some health issues. I never, I go, please help me, Carrie, I've got this and this. And, likewise with other people, they're always kind of, it's always better to see somebody else, because you're not impartial when it comes to yourself. You don't see little things which other people do, and I think even as a practitioner yourself, the best thing you can do if you have any health complaints or any issues is get somebody else on board, because you can never treat yourself, because it's just not the way it works, really.
Right. I agree 100%. As somebody who's I've got it, getting over the end of a virus. I even have my box of tissue with me just in case. You cannot treat yourself. I thought I could self-manage myself, and it turns out I'm a terrible self-manager. I needed other people tell me to, you know, this is what you should take and you should slow down and you should go lay on the couch and you just need to stop. And I'm like, I don't want to.
I think that's the problem as a kid, as a healer, isn't it? You want to heal everyone all the time. That's your gift in a way.
Right.
You're I don't know about the other people listening, but probably terrible patients, because you're going, why isn't my body healing? I've given it everything it needs.
Like I do everything right.
Is sleep, rest, recovery, and stopping the brain going crazy. You know, you just need to totally switch off and stop the adrenals pumping away. And that is medicine that, you know, more than anything that I give my patients and my clients is just to kind of go, just sleep well, you know, make sure you're getting a good 8 hours, because if there is some issues, 8 hours is probably the amount of time you need, really. And if you've got something amazing that can help you track that can really, you know, support. We can support that whole system. Yeah, we've joined the Ura cult, everyone.
I know that we have. I'm so excited.
So that's great. And me and Carrie have been really geeking out, because it's both stopped us in our tracks, because we're both very passionate about what we do. We're constantly researching. We're always looking to help people, and we're interested in things. And I'm terrible. I'm a really bad night owl. That's kind of when I start to get going. And it stopped me from staying up late. And it's actually, since I've had this, it's been tracking the amount of REM sleep and deep sleep that I've been having. And I think there's so much out there at the moment that's talking about sleep. Dr. Chatterjee in the UK is talking about that. There's books on that, you know, in terms of, you know, you don't get enough sleep, that can actually cause, you know, metabolic disease and all sorts of inflammatory pathways going wrong in the body. So I think, you know, something that helps you, even if it is, you know, a bit kind of nanny state, really telling you, go to sleep now, you know, your optimum bedtime is between 23:10 and, you know, whatever. It's still good, because you need someone to tell you, because if you're kind of going out there all the time, busy, you're going to get sick. You know, both of us have been sick the last couple of weeks because we haven't listened to our bodies. And I think it's the same, you know, from all practitioners' point of view. You can't help people if you're not well yourself. So it's about, you know, making sure you put those things in place to help your clients as well. So, you know, doing the deed, you know, walking the walk, making sure.
It's so true. All right, in the interest of time, we have one last question. So in a minute or less, what is your big takeaway from your lecture that you're hoping people will get?
So for my big takeaway, I'm going to be quick so you can get something in there as well. But I think the important thing for me is just bringing in as much research as possible to help support your clients to understand that. Some of them may not be as empirically, you know, inclined as you, but it's important to show that you've done your research on that. There are some, you know, great studies behind, you know, the preconception side of things. And it's just basically helping your clients to understand that you come from an evidence-based sort of response from that. So, you know, so that you have a credibility from there. So, but also, like we were talking about before, not just looking at the evidence, because there's a lot of randomized controlled trials that are actually not necessarily telling you what you need to say on the nutritional side. So looking at symptoms, anecdotal things that are happening within your practice as well. So, you know, clinical side of things are absolutely amazing, but also look at symptoms, you know, make sure you're taking note of things that are happening, you know, as a pattern really with some of the clients you're working with.
Absolutely. And then my big takeaway for my lecture, like I was saying at the beginning, is that my whole point is to explain proper hormone testing, really just to explain timing of the cycle when it comes to fertility. What are you looking for? What's your goal? And when you should collect? And then what do you do with it? Because I don't want you as practitioners who are listening to say, oh, well, you're here today and it's Tuesday at 3:00. Let's just draw your blood, or let's just go ahead and collect this test real quick. But yet it has no bearing. They're at the wrong part of their cycle. Maybe they're still on their period. It's maybe, you know, like maybe their period's due tomorrow. And now you've had them spend money, especially if it's more of a functional test, or you've had them go get a blood draw. And it's sort of maybe worthless information because you miss the timing. Or so you can explain to your patient, like, hey there, client, you have to wait to this part of your cycle. And if you miss it, don't do it, like, because it's going to be a waste. And so I'm going to explain sort of all those nuances for various testing: estrogen, progesterone, FSH, LH. And for men too, I want men to understand when they need to get their hormones tested. They're not quite as on the rhythm or the cycle that women have, but they still need to get certain hormones tested. And I'll explain all that and why.
Absolutely.
It's my part of the summit. All right. So I think, man, we've covered a lot. We've covered all sorts of things about testing and nutrition and genetics and where we see trends headed, and to make sure people don't forget about the men and why it's important to give at least 3 months of pre-fertility work. And so for those of you listening, if you have not yet bought your tickets, please, please, please buy your tickets for the Regenerous Laboratories Gestational Journey Summit, which is October 13th and 14th. You can buy your tickets at Regenerous's website, or you can go to the specific website, theintegrativehealthsummit.com. And for those of you listening to maybe the recording, those will be linked as well. So, and you'll hear myself, and you'll hear Angela, and you'll hear a ton of other amazing speakers. I'm super excited for the whole lineup, and to learn a whole lot.
Me too.
So
It's
thanks,
going to
Ange.
be really exciting, isn't it? It's really, it's going to be great. And I think, you know, if you want to learn about fertility, if this is the area you're working in, and you want to help people postnatally as well, and you want to look at female health testing and male health testing and herbs and nutrients, the whole works, even particular conditions like PCOS. We've got a whole combination of people involved in this summit. So it's going to be such an exciting, groundbreaking kind of summit, really. So I think, you know, come along. You know, if you're not coming, why not?
Yeah, what's the problem?
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
All right, well, good. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I love talking to you as always, Angela.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great talking to you, Carrie, and I think just bringing people on board as part of this, and being, you know, at the same summit is going to be amazing. So it'll be great.
It's going to be fun. So I'll see you in a month.
Yeah, absolutely. See you in a month.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.